Hello, Year 3. Good morning and welcome to Literacy. As you can see, I'm in slightly different surroundings today. I thought I'd bring myself to the office, which is a very posh word for saying it's the spare room with lots of things in. Can you see the very untidy bookcase behind me? So I am really excited to be doing literacy with you this week because this week we are looking at diary writing, and we are going to be looking at diary writing of an evacuee. And I think this is such an interesting subject that we're doing. And I'm really excited because I think it's a really good way of being able to show all of that knowledge that you've gained about World War II that we've been doing since Christmas. So I'm really looking forward to being able to do this with you this week. So let's have a start. I'm just going to wonder why the computer's not working. There we go. There we go. So you can see that today we're going to start thinking about what the features of a diary are. Okay, and to be successful today, we're going to be able to identify the specific features of a diary. So we know that when we write a diary, some things are slightly different from other different genres that we would get you to write. So we're going to identify the specific features of a diary, and we're going to look at how the writer is feeling by their diary entry, okay? And we also are going to look at why diary extracts from World War II are really important. So the first thing I want you to have a think about this morning is, have you ever written a diary? It's something that a lot of people do. It's something that lots of adults do and lots of children. So have you ever written a diary? I want you to have a think about what they're for. Why do we have diaries? And also, why are they important pieces of evidence when we're looking back on things that have happened? When we're looking back on important moments in history, why are diaries so important? Okay, so I want you to pause your video here, first of all, and have a think about these questions. So hopefully you've had a think. I've never written a diary. I never did one when I was a child, and I haven't done one as an adult. But I know lots of people who write a diary. Lots of children your age might write a diary, as it's a fun way of looking back at things. And lots of adults write a diary now because, again, they like to look back at events, and it's a nice way of being able to think about the day that you've had. If you've had a good day, it's a really good way of writing everything down. But also, if you've had a not great day, it's also a really good way of writing down things that haven't gone wrong, and then you can close your book on the day, and that will help you think about things that have happened in the day. As I said, I've never written a diary. I never had one as a child. But what are they for? What did you come up with? Well, one of the things I came up with is it's to record what your life is like. And it's really nice if you wrote one as a child and then you've managed to keep it, you can look back as an adult and think, oh, I forgot we did that. Or, oh, I remember when we did that. So it's a different way of recording things that have happened to you. Some people and some adults might have it because it's really good for their mental health. And lots of people now, and mental health is so important for us, especially at the moment. Okay, and lots of people write down things because it's really good to get things out. And maybe if they don't want to talk to somebody about it, being able to write about things is another really good way of documenting how you feel. And lots of people really like that once they've written things about how they're feeling, if they're happy or sad or angry, once they've written them down in their diary, it makes them feel like they've shared that with somebody. And why can they be important pieces of evidence when we look back on historical events? Well, we'll come to that in a moment. I wonder what you thought about that. I want you to have a look at these two people. I want you to have a think and see if you can recognise who they are and why they were so important. These are two people who had a famous diary. So pause. This man, okay, I think if you have studied a specific event that happened in London, you might remember who he is. And this lady, or this young girl, is an important diarist, someone who wrote a diary during World War II. So pause the video and see if you can think who they are. Well, this man here, he was Samuel Pepys. Now, does Samuel Pepys ring a bell? Well, Samuel Pepys was alive during the Great Fire of London. Is it starting to come back to you now? Well, he was alive during the Great Fire of London. And you might remember, he's the man that buried the cheese. Okay, he had a really big piece of cheese. I think it was Parmesan, but I don't want to say it was Parmesan, but he had a really big piece of cheese and he buried his cheese. But how do we know all this? How do we know so much about what happened during the Great Fire of London? Well, that was because this man, Samuel Pepys, kept a diary. And because he kept a diary, and because he wrote in the diary everything that happened, we now know lots of things that happened during the Great Fire of London just because of Samuel Pepys' diary. Now, did you guess who the second person was? Did you have a think? Now, this young girl is called Anne Frank. Okay, and the grown-ups might know more about Anne Frank, but Anne Frank and her family were Jewish. And during World War II, when the Nazis were ruling her country, okay, they made life for Jewish families really, really difficult. And lots of Jews were treated really badly. And what happened was Anne and her family went into hiding, but they went into hiding in somebody's attic. And there was Anne and her family and two other families that were all hiding in this attic. And that meant there were 8 people all in the attic together. And what she started to do is she started to write a diary. And she called her diary Kitty. And Kitty was like her imaginary friend. And she wrote in her diary, and she drew, in fact, this one here, this diary is Anne's diary here. And she drew pictures and photos, and she had lots of postcards, and she documented everything that happened. What happened is that after the war, somebody found her diary, and this is such an important piece of history because it tells us exactly what it was like to be a Jewish family during the war. Okay, and it's such an important piece of history, and that's because it was written by people that actually experienced those things. So Samuel Pepys' diary is really important because it happened at the time, and he can tell us what it was like during the Great Fire of London. Anne Frank's diary is so important because, again, it tells us, people who would never have experienced that, it tells us on a first-hand experience exactly what it was like for that family. So diaries can be a really important piece of history. An example, if we were writing diaries now, in years to come, when people will study the lockdown and the global pandemic of COVID-19, you think somebody might be looking at your diary and understanding just what it was like for a family during that global pandemic when we had to go into lockdown. So the diary we are going to be looking at this week, and we're going to be using it to help us, is a book by a lady called Jan Pollard, and this is the lady here. Okay, and she wrote a diary called Evacuee, a real-life World War II story, and it's all about her experience as an evacuee, and it's written in a diary form. Now, the book doesn't have every single day, but it has the really important moments during the Second World War. So we are going to use that to help us with our story, with our diary writing this week. So the first part I am going to share with you, okay, is where Jan the little girl, okay, is where she finds out that she's going to be evacuated. So we're going to read these extracts together. Everyone in Britain was given a ration book by the government to make sure food was shared out equally amongst people. The book listed foods such as eggs, cheese, butter, meat, and butter. We all had the same amount each week, and whenever we bought food, the shopkeeper would tick rationed items in the book. In another paper bag, I would take a packet of sandwiches to eat on the journey, an apple, and some barley sugar. Around my neck, I would have a large label to say who I was. I expect I looked like a parcel when I was ready to set off. The night before, I was sent to bed early because I was joining the bus with the other children very early the next morning. It would be a long journey to the place of safety, but nobody knew where that would be. I had a job to sleep as I was very excited about this great adventure, but I fell asleep eventually and had got up as soon as my mother woke me the next morning. All the pupils of George Green School were gathered in Victoria Place, where a bus was waiting to take them a few miles to Wivenhoe. From there, they would be boarding a steam train to take them to their destination. The pupils were very quiet and orderly as they boarded the bus. Nobody could tell my mother where we were going, except that it would be across England to a place of safety. Even the teachers did not know exactly where our journey would end. I was only one of an enormous number of children to be evacuated. I later found out that on this day, 47,000 children were evacuated from the coastal towns in 97 trains. My mother joined a large group of Brightlingsea people who had come to see the school leave. They were mainly from the families who had taken the children into their homes as their evacuees when they first came from London. So just to let you know, this is a little girl, and she's gone to the country to stay with her nan, okay? And this was when lots of children had already been evacuated, but they'd been evacuated to the coast. And the government decided that this was no longer safe because lots of coastal towns were at risk of getting bombed as well. So the children that were evacuated to the coast had to be evacuated again. So these are the lot of the children that were with Jan when she was evacuated had already been evacuated once. Some had had the same evacuees for 10 months and had become fond of them. In fact, my mother was the only parent there, as the other children's parents were back in London. Some of their parents had come by coach once a month to visit their children, but now, although we didn't know where we were going, we knew that we would all be too far away for parents to visit. At the time, people did not like to show their emotions as much. I knew my mother would be worried about me as she said goodbye, but she would never have expected me. She would have expected me to be brave about it. My mother said, "Don't make a fuss." And she gave me a quick kiss on my cheek. "The war will be soon over and you will be back home in no time." Perhaps she thought I would cry as she left, but I was far too excited to feel like shedding any tears. I had been bored waiting to start school again, and the other children looked as if, like me, they were looking forward to this great adventure too. I didn't know any of the children from George's Green School or their teachers, but I soon got to know the girl sat next to me. She was called Mary, and she was smaller than me and rather shy. I chatted away to Mary, and we soon became good friends. So what I want you to have a look, that was like a story, okay? We're listening to a story being told by a real person. But what I want you to have a think about, pause this video and have a think about the different things that you notice about the diary, okay? What different features has this got that some stories don't have? Okay, what is different about a diary? I want you to have a pause the video and just have a think what the different things are, and then we're going to discuss what the features of a diary are. Well, hopefully you've had a think now and had a think about what the different things about a diary are compared to other things that we would write. Especially if you think about your story that you wrote last week about your evacuee in the Battle of Britain. So things that you would find in a diary. Okay, the first thing is that it's written in first person. Okay, and thing that is written in first person will always use I or me or we. Okay, and it's always written about that person. Something else that you would find in diary is that most of it is written in past tense. Okay, and past tense is what has already happened. Okay, so you might write about things that happened in your day. You might write about things that you experienced. You would possibly say about things that you're looking forward to or something that you know is going to happen in your week. But most things that you write about in your diary are all about things that have actually happened, because they include thoughts and feelings about the event. So you can't say that something made you really sad until that thing's happened. You can't say that you loved going to the fair and eating the candy floss if you haven't been to the fair and eaten the candy floss. So it's all about things that have happened. And a diary is a really good way of writing down thoughts and feelings about what had happened. So you might be able to put things in your diary that you wouldn't be able to share with an adult, about how something made you really happy, about how something really made you annoyed. Okay, and these are really, this is one of the things that a diary is used for by lots of people, is to record their thoughts and feelings about things that have happened to them. When we're writing a diary, and these next two features really link together well, we use things like after lunch or before bed, because we're writing in chronological order. We try and write things as they happen. So you wouldn't write in a diary about something that happened on the Tuesday and then write about something that happened on the Monday. You would write about the Monday and then on the Tuesday. And if you're writing about your day, rather than saying, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, you can use time connectives such as after lunch, before bed. And again, this just makes your writing more interesting, but it also helps with writing in a chronological order. And chronological order just means it's written in sequence. Okay, so if you had a really exciting birthday, you would start in the morning with what happened, possibly opening your presents. Then you might have a really special breakfast. Then you might go out to a party if it wasn't locked down. And then you would finish off about things that happened in the evening. Okay, there wouldn't be any sense in writing about something that happened in the evening before you talk about opening your presents. So it's all about writing in that chronological order. So the first thing we're going to do today, and if you haven't got this printed off, there is a different way of doing this later on in the video. But what I want you to do is we're going to have a look at the first page that we're looking at today. And we're going to identify those things that happened in those things that we can find in the page. Okay, so we're going to try and identify the things that show it is written in first person. We're going to find the things that show it was written in the past tense, the things that tell us what the girl thought, and time conjunctions and chronological order. So pause this here and see if you can identify all those different things in this page. So hopefully you will have found lots of things that show it is written in the first person. So the obvious things are I would take, okay, but she's not talking about her mom, she's not talking about her friends, she's talking about herself. So I would take, I expect, I looked like, I left, I was. So it's all about what I did. Okay, so it's all about writing in the first person. Has it been written in the past tense? Everyone in Britain was given a ration book. That's in the past. The book listed food. So that ED on the end tells us that it is in the past tense. We all had the same amount each week. Okay, and would tick whenever we bought food. Okay, so these are all words that we would use to show that something has been done in the past tense. Oh, there's one more down there. I was sent to bed early. Okay, not I am going to be sent to bed or I go to bed. I was sent to bed. Okay, so this one here, it's written in the first person, but it also tells us what she thought. I expect I looked like a parcel when I was ready to set off. So she's saying, I think I looked a bit like a parcel. I was all wrapped up with lots of different things. So I think I looked like a parcel. So that's something that she thought. She's recalling what she thought at the time. Okay, and there's our time conjunction, the night before. So this is what is happening. She is describing the night before she left. So there are lots of things on that one page that tell us show us all the different features of a diary. You might have found some other ones. You might have found more than me. Okay, I can see straight away that I've missed out some that are in the first person. And I can see that there are probably some other ones that I could have put in. Now, I want you to think about one other thing that is important for our diary writing. This goes back to when we were writing our Professor Pete. And it even goes back to when we were writing our story about the Battle of Britain last week. This diary has got lots of historical information. And it's that thing, isn't it? Historical information. We are being told what rationing was here. We are being told what she has taken with her on her journey. Okay, this is really important historical information. And now we are getting experts, aren't we? We are becoming experts at our historical knowledge about World War II. So we really want you to add lots of information that shows you understand what it is like to be an evacuee in World War II. Okay, we are going to get lots of historical information from this book. Okay, you've got lots of historical information about what it was like in the Blitz. Okay, lots of you, I know, have been talking to other members of the family. Some of you have been talking to great-grandparents about what it was like to be an evacuee. We've spoken to Mrs. Nicholson about what it was like having evacuees in the area where she lived. So we're getting so much information about what it was like during World War II, and we want to see that information in your diaries. Okay, here is the second page. I would like you to pause the video here and have a look and find that information. Find where it's talking about first person. Find where it's talking about writing in chronological order. Find if there's any, now there might not be everything included on this page, but see if it says anything about thoughts and feelings. Now, what I have done is I've got lots of different symbols. So I've got one symbol for everything written in first person. I've got another symbol for everything that's written in chronological order. So what you could do is get some different coloured pens and you could highlight. Remember how we annotate our notes? You could highlight all the different things that are telling us about the diary. So pause your video here. If you haven't been able to print off the diary extract, you can also always discuss it with somebody else. So pause the video here, pause the video here, pause the video here, and have a look at this page of the diary. Okay, so you can see that I have annotated my next page of the diary. And here I've annotated everything that tells me it's written in first person. So I had a job, but I fell asleep. Where else have I got it here? I'm skimming through. My mother. Okay, so that's still talking about first person. It's talking about yours. I was the only one. I later found. Okay, so all that is talking about first person. I had a job to get to sleep as I felt very excited. Okay, that's telling us how the author is feeling. Okay, very excited. Okay, have I got anything else that tells me about thoughts and feelings? Well, I've got here, the pupils were very quiet. Now, that doesn't necessarily tell me a thought or a feeling, but it gives me an indication of how the children are feeling, doesn't it? Because if they were really loud and they were laughing and joking and everything was really excited, okay, that would tell me that they're looking forward to something. The fact that they were very quiet, maybe they were a bit nervous. Maybe they were a little bit worried about what was going to happen. So that's another thought and feeling. Where is my past tense? Well, I fell asleep eventually and got up as soon as my mother woke me. Okay, that is all telling me something that has already happened. We were gathered in Victoria Place, not we were gathering or we are going to gather. We gathered in Victoria Place. So that tells me that it's already happened. Even the teachers did not know. Okay, again, that's telling me a thought and feeling. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they're going. But also it's telling me that she's describing it in the past. We were going to be evacuated. Okay. And the other one, okay, is our time connective. Okay, it's telling me when my mother woke me the next morning, that is my time connective. It's telling me when it's happening. So she's gone to sleep. Then she tells me about them gathering. And then she tells me that they did not know where they were going. So it's all written in chronological order. So we are finding lots of features in a diary, in this diary extract that we are looking at. So for your task today, you are going to go through the rest of the extract that we have looked at, really identifying those features that we know that are in a diary. You might want to also record the historical information that you are finding out, because there are lots of historical information in there as well. Now, as I said, you can either print off the PDF that is on the website, okay, and you can annotate. If you haven't got a printer, or some of you have run out of printer ink, as I was talking to you last week, which is not very, very great, is it? We're all starting to run out of printer ink at the moment because we're doing so much work. But if you have run out of printer ink, you could write yourself a little grid. You could write yourself a grid, and then you can write the examples that you find in each page. So you could end up with 4 grids telling us all the phrases and all the different things that show us that it is a feature of the diary. But one thing I do want you to note, and this is for all of you, I want you to note down the historical information that you find out, especially if you find out new historical information that you think you could add to your diary writing. So, for example, Jan tells us that 47,000 children were evacuated on one day, the same day that she was evacuated. So that's some information that you could put into your diary. Okay, this is obviously a diary that's not been written at the time. It's been written a little bit later because she's added the information. Okay, but you could add information about rationing. So I really would like you to have a look at the diary and really pull out all of those different features that we've talked about for diary writing. I'm just going to stop there. Okay, so that is your task today then, year 3. You're going to look all the way through that extract that I've given you, and you're going to highlight all the different features of the diary. You're going to highlight that it's written in first person. You're going to highlight that it's written with thoughts and feelings. You're going to highlight that it's written in the past tense, and you're going to show that it's written in chronological order with those time connectives included. But also you're going to look at the historical information that you are learning in that extract, and you are going to note that down so that hopefully when we come to writing our diaries later on in the week, you can interweave and you can magpie that information for today. If you're a bit stuck or if you need any help, then you can always email us just to clarify any information for us. But hopefully you'll have lots of fun looking at that diary this morning. Enjoy, and we will look at diaries again tomorrow.